Hey, it's Jim from the Practical Guitarist podcast. And today what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to show you how to control a BluGuitar Amp1 using the HX effects and using the BluGuitar Amp1 MIDI adapter. So let's get started. First things that you need is you need to get the adapter, which then you get a MIDI cable, just a standard MIDI cable, and you plug that into the output from the HX effects. Here's the HX effects, and here's the BluGuitar Amp1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use snapshots in this case, but I'll show you how you can do it differently in order to change the channel, and I'm going to change the boost on and off. And you can change to a channel that is not selected in your channel selector. Let's get started. I'm pretty lazy, so what I do is I use the HX Edit software, and in this case, of course I'm taking a picture of a picture, so I'm sure it's probably not as great as it could be, but anyway, in this case what I've done is I've created 4 snapshots, and in the snapshots I went to Window, then I went to Command Center, and in Command Center, right here, I went to this where it says Bank Program. Then I used the MIDI channel 1. It is in the Amp1's guide. You can only use MIDI channel 1. It is not programmable in the Amp1. Then I went to Program, and I chose a program other than off. See, this is off. I said 0. So I began, the numbering schema starts at 0, like most numbering schemas for digital equipment. And in snapshot 2, I used channel 1, program 1. In snapshot 3, I used program 2. And in snapshot 4, I used program 3. So I made a note so that if later I want to recall those programs, I made a note in a document so that I could recall them later. All right, so here's how this works. I've got right now snapshot 1 tells the Amp1 to be on the clean channel with no boost. All right, so if we go to snapshot 2, I told it that I wanted this to be clean channel with boost. And there it is, with boost. And so what I'm going to show is that you can go to something other than what is selected here. So I'm going to bring this up, and I'm going to go to the furthest one, which is, if I hit this button, that is the modern channel. Okay? And I'm going to turn this off, boost off. And now I'm going to set it for, you'll see it go to vintage, and the boost will be off. And that's what snapshot 3 is going to do. So I choose snapshot 3. Voila. So even though this is set for here, notice you can go to vintage. So you can choose any one of these, and you can choose any one of these buttons to be on or off. So let's see how you do program that. Let's create another one. Let's create one that will choose something other than what I've already done. So, as you can see, I put it back to clean 0. So really all you've got to do is to train the Amp1. So let's program snapshot 1 in 14A to turn on the, we're going to have it go to classic and we'll have it have reverb on. We'll just do that. I can always reprogram that program to be something different later in the AMP1, and I'll show you how to learn that. So, or how the AMP1 learns that. So you'll go to your command center on the snapshot that you want, on the preset that you want. Here's the preset, here's the snapshot. I didn't have my camera up there. Then we go to the instant change. I'm going to go to bank program. I'm going to say 4. And I'm going to say 1. Done. All right. So I'm going to go to snapshot 2 right now. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the AMP1. I'm going to tell it to learn the command, and then I'll send the command. So at the AMP1, so what we do is we come over here, and we want to set this to go to classic. We want it to be in our overdrive channel, obviously. We want the reverb to be on, is what I said. Okay. Then we're going to tell it to remember this, or to learn the program channel that we're going to send. Now, I'll hold this down until this flashes. Then I have 10 seconds to choose the snapshot I wanted. And you'll notice it stopped flashing. All right, so now we'll go and we'll put it in vintage, and I'll turn this on. So I got everything on, right? But if I make that change, it should go to classic, this should go off, and this should come on. So let's actually even test it more. We'll turn these two off. And so what should happen is this should go off, this should go on, this should go on, and we should be in classic. All right, so we go to snapshot 1. And there you go. Even though the setting is for vintage, this went to classic just like I remembered, or I told it to remember. And this came on, this went off, and this came on. Now, another interesting piece of data is that, remember, I had told snapshot 3, or I mean program 3, that if I use program 3, I want to turn this to vintage. Over here at the AMP1, program 3 was in the other snapshot that I showed you at the beginning. It would be vintage and it would be boosted. That was program 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to vintage, or I mean up here to metal. I'm going to turn this off, turn this off. What should happen is this should go to vintage, this should come on, and this should come on. Because in snapshot 2, that's what I did. I told it, I'll show you here, to go to program 3. And down here, you'll see it did just that. It went to vintage with the boost on. So it's a good idea to make a note of what you want your programs to have, so you don't make a bunch of redundant programs. So now I know that in any snapshot I can choose program 3 and I can have it go to that setting. So once I learn enough settings, once the AMP1 learns enough settings, then I don't have to reprogram new things every time. I can just say, okay, I want it to go to that. I know that's program 1 is clear. As a matter of fact, I'll do that for you right now. So I'll set 3 up to be, I'm going to window. I think that's a little washed out on the screen. Anyway, I'll have that go to program 0. And that will be clean and no boost. So if I go from snapshot 2 Now remember, this is instantaneous. That's why I have to change the snapshots. So if I go from snapshot 2 to snapshot 3, and I'll point this down at the amp 1, now I'm going to click snapshot 3, and you see it change. So there you go. That's how you do it. Sorry this took so long. I'll probably edit it post and make sure that things flow real well. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your floppy-haired host because it's so dry right now, from the Practical Guitarist. Rock on.